Well, this will be a little bit more relaxed than what we had last night when I last had the microphone in my hands. And as we welcome, here we go, everybody. Pay attention. Class will come to order. Dr. Nicos Sifakis works in two worlds. One is the world of academic research into English language teaching and methodology, and the other is the English language classroom itself. In particular, I believe the Greek public school English classroom. The beauty of his work, in my opinion, is that it connects these two worlds, that is the theoretical and the practical. So he's particularly well suited to address us here because our convention theme, as you know, is the what and the how of English teaching. And of course, how one affects the other. He's an assistant professor of language teaching methodology at Hellenic Open University. He's a frequent speaker at conferences such as ours, in Greece and abroad. And he publishes in his academic research in ELT journals. And 2 years ago, or a little less than that, he published this hefty volume that I'm going to show you. It's quite impressive. His book is Αγγλική γλώσσα και παγκοσμοποίηση, όψεις της σύγχρονης πραγματικότητας στην Ελλάδα, στην Ευρώπη και στον υπόλοιπο κόσμο. The artwork is also by him, I understand. It's a collage he made on the cover of some globalized, familiar, and maybe not so familiar slogans. In it, he sketches the spread of English all over the world, and then especially in the second half of the book, talks about the why we teach English in Greece, as well as the how, including from the first years of the Greek state up to the present. It's a fascinating treatment of this theme if you want to know how you come to be, what role you come to be playing as English teachers in this world. This is one guide. He wrote it in Greek because there was nothing like it previously in Greek. And he wanted to be able to inform Greek parents, professors, teachers, policymakers about what it is to speak and teach English in Greece in our time. He taught me in this book a new word. It's his own word. That's why I hadn't been familiar with it before, and it is the following. Πιστοποιητικοκρατία και εκπαίδευση. He has a chapter on that. He's going to be talking to you. Well, there you see the title of his talk. I won't repeat it, but I will let you know that later in the afternoon, as you may have seen on your programs, he will be leading a workshop that extends the material from his plenary. I don't think I have to add anything more, but to welcome Nicos Sifakis. I should say welcome him back. I should say welcome him back because he tells me that he spoke at one of our conventions 7 or 8 years ago, and in the meantime, wrote that book.
Phil, thank you very much indeed. I understand that the book will be available through the library at some point.
Giving a copy of this library. Special offering and borrowing privileges. It's also for sale, of course.
Thank you very much, Phil, for the invitation, and thanks to TESOL Macedonia-Thrace, Northern Greece, for inviting me here. I'm really very happy to be here and to see a few familiar faces, friends, and many new friends. This is, as Phil mentioned, not the first time I'm talking to TESOL Macedonia-Thrace convention. I was also invited back in 2005, where I talked about issues that are more related with the book, Global English, English as a Lingua Franca, and the methodologies involved there. Today I'm going to be talking about this topic. More about it later. Oops. I try to be as much, I try to have as much an online presence as I can. So you can find more about me, my research, and my social kind of presence. I have a Facebook account, but I particularly like Twitter. I follow various researchers around, and I like it for two reasons. The first one is that information published on Twitter is very brief, as you know, not the huge Facebook messages and so on. And secondly, because you can follow researchers and really important people in the field who write about stuff they are going to write, that they're going to publish. So long before you find an article in ELT Journal or TESOL Quarterly, you know that certain researchers are writing about their thoughts and their research long before they are published. So Twitter is a great, great tool. And a few more things about me. As Phil mentioned, I've been involved with the teacher education area of teachers of English as a foreign language in Greece, working mainly at the Open University, the Hellenic Open University, which is based in Patras, but has many students all around Greece. Since 1998, when it was established, and I've learned many things about both the world of teacher education, adult education, distance education, of course, and I was able to, through that, to go deeper into my own kind of preferred field of research, which is English as a lingua franca. So, I tried to organize my talk in a slightly, different way. Let me say, I'm sure that most people have heard the term differentiated instruction before. Am I right in this? Have you heard the term? And I'm also, I imagine that most of you know what the term means. Who's heard the term before but has no idea what it means? No one. So you know what it means? No? Some ideas. Some. Okay. It's a funny term, differentiated instruction. I'm not sure it's the most relevant, suitable term to use in our context. It reminds me of differentiated equations. Differentiated, a heavier word. But it's an important, let's say, term in that it helps teachers of any field, not just language teachers, in dealing with a particular problem, with actually a whole area of problems that are, that we all face when we teach any context and any student. So I'm going to be talking about the problems, what the problems are, why we have these problems, and I'll try not to provide all the information myself. I have a couple of videos from distinguished people who will give us a brief understanding of how we got here. I'll try to involve you a bit, if you don't mind. So I'll get you to think a bit about these issues. The problem is one main thing that I'll be talking about. And then I'll go into the proposed solution, which is not a specific kind of recipe-like set of solutions. Differentiated instruction is not about, this is what you do. It's more like a way of thinking about education, a way of thinking about our roles in schools and schooling in general. And hopefully this will be understood when we discuss the problem. And in the early afternoon, in a couple of hours, I'll be giving you more food for thought, more opportunities to think about possible ways of addressing the problem with your learners. So I'm not going to give you specific recipes, okay, because I don't believe in specific recipes. But I think that you will get, if you follow both this talk and the afternoon workshop, you will get a good understanding of exactly how you should be moving. I'm going to be standing behind this podium. I have some notes, but actually, before we do that, so these are some impressions. I don't know if you can see this. Now, this cartoon, of course, is funny because it depicts the problem the state in which the teacher is in and the state in which the learners are in, and the mismatch between them. What's the problem? The teacher is what? Yeah, she is, but she's very excited, so she's enthusiastic. Okay, she's really into the lesson. She's prepared, okay, for the lesson. She's excited. The learners are not sharing. They don't share this, okay? So there's a mismatch. This is another way of looking at the problem. Okay, and you will find many similar cartoons if you look at images. This is a teacher asking a colleague, "Can you help me, Mrs. Martin? This wasn't covered in any of my education courses." So there's a message here for education courses, obviously. What courses are we looking? What is she looking for? Classroom management. Okay. And Mrs. Martin is helpless, of course. She can't help at all. This is yet another problem which speaks volumes about what? Which area in teaching, learning, and what aspect of testing in particular? Any testing? Yeah. The same exam. So standardized testing. Standardized testing is the same for everybody. We don't care who you are, okay? The same for everybody because of reliability and so on. So, okay, this is, I think, a very preliminary orientation of the problem we're facing. But I want you to see, before I say anything more about the differentiated instruction solution to these problems, I want you to see a differentiated classroom in action. Okay, just have a look at it, what it looks like. I'm going to start the video. This is not an English language lesson, it's a mathematics lesson from the United States, a classroom in the United States. When we begin, we will, there's sound in it, but sound is not important. I want us all to focus on what is going on. So, think about what's going on in this class. Let's have some sound at the beginning. The video was taken by the teacher of the class.
Is the number of cube you're making. Wait, what are you trying to get? What are you trying to get?
The question is, what can you see that's different from your own context, teaching context? What in this classroom is different, new? Groups work differently. Groups work on different tasks. They're seated in different stations around the class.
So what's B if A is 7?
There's a lot of peer work. That girl was actually, this was the first shot, was teaching those, yes. I have no idea. What do you think? Probably different. Where's the teacher? Yeah. What is the teacher doing?
Check the other ones.
Monitoring.
Hey, Jen, you can check the other ones.
I mean, this is, yeah, I mean, he's just looking. Things are going on without an interference from the teacher, really. I mean, yeah. He's there as a reference. If needed, he will help. There's a lot of moving around. He's a resource. People are free to stand up and move around. They know what they're doing. Of course, they have the tasks. But not everybody is working in groups. This learner here works on his own. Okay? So if you want, you can work in groups. If you don't, for whatever reason, your learner type or whatever, we'll talk about these later. How much preparation do you think the teacher had to make before the class? A lot of preparation. As opposed to the first lady, the teacher in the cartoon, who was excited, she was prepared, but probably she was doing the same lesson every time, she had the plan in her head. Also, you can see that the walls, the blackboards are used. So you have people moving around and using everything that they can use, that they have access to carry out the task. Lots of boards. Yeah, this is typical in American classes, I think. And this is not a wealthy classroom. It's not a particularly rich school. There are no computers, although there are a couple of electronic devices used. But as far as I can see, there's a task, different learners carrying out different tasks. They work in groups. The teacher is monitoring, and learning is taking place, obviously. Okay, it's not the teacher who does all the work. Yes? Mm-hmm. Yes, this is obviously not the first day that they've been doing this. Yeah. Okay. This is a well-oiled classroom. Okay? They've been doing this for many, many days, probably weeks or months or even years. So this is not their first take on it. Okay, let's move on. This is a working definition of differentiated instruction. What's the operative word? Send me an email and I will send you the PDF of everything. So don't worry about copying it down. What's the operative word? Right. Okay. Appropriacy. Right. Okay. And this is the opposite to the differentiated context. And the operative word here is? Okay. So one size fits all as opposed to variability, variety, diversity, differentiation. Yes. Now, I promised that I'm going to show you a couple of wise words from wise people. Have you heard of Alvin Toffler? He's Future Show. Yes, he's a very well-known, I think he's in his 80s, or even older than that. Very well-known educational expert, American, who wrote Future Shock in the early 70s and predicted many of the problems and opportunities that came long after that time. And in this clip with his wife, he talks about the problem and why we have the school system that we have today. How is the school system, how did it come up? What happened and we had this school system? This is just a short section from a longer clip. So have a listen to this and think about it.
Prepared for his revolution.
The educational system?
The educational system.
No way.
No, the education.
Not prepared at all.
The educational.
We have to change.
I don't know your system, but I bet it's not very different from our system. Okay.
Do you have to memorize things and take tests that are yes and no?
Our system.
It's the same.
Our system, which is the same in Japan, and it's the same in Korea, and it's the same in many countries. There are some differences, but basically they're the same. And the best way to understand what our public education system is to go back to how it got started. In the 1800s in the United States, you had most young people were children of farmers. They worked in the fields. And when somebody proposed that America institute a system of public education for all young people, the parents of the poor parents said, no, we can't allow our kids to go to school. They need to work, otherwise we starve. We don't have enough hands to work in the fields. So they opposed public education. The people who favored it were wealthy, and the people who made it happen were business. In the late 1800s, the business community said, you know what? All these kids are coming into the factory, but they're coming from the farms, and they're not good factory workers. You know what? They come late to work. You can't count on them. They're not good.
At harvest time, they stay home.
What we need, they said, and these are the actual words that they used in English, you translate them, quote, we want a system that will create, quote, industrial discipline, end quote. What was industrial discipline? Industrial discipline meant you showed up on time. And you did the same work again and again and again and again, just as you did on an assembly line.
And you could read the sign that says, don't put your hand in the machine.
Yeah. What happened was we designed schools that actually resemble the factory.
Do you buy this? It's very possible. In fact, it's actually what happened. And it's interesting that the situation is the same everywhere. So everything that has to do with the layout of the classroom, the role of the teacher, the use, the importance of the materials, the curriculum, one curriculum for everybody and so on. I mean, now you have some sort of understanding of why we are where we are today, probably, most probably, in all probability. So you could argue that if you treat the classroom, your classroom in a differentiated way, it's more authentic. People can be themselves. And this is when you have learning. Learning takes place when you are yourself. Now, if you look at schooling through the ages, and I'm going to show you a few paintings from the 18th century, middle 18th century. Think about these images. Think about whether you've experienced anything like this, not exactly the same thing, of course, but anything that resembles this in your own experience as learners, as students, and the extent, think about the extent to which your own teaching your context resembles what you see. So think about this. Discuss a few ideas with your partner, whoever's sitting next to you. You know, does this resemble your learning days? Does it resemble your teaching days? I'm going to keep showing you some more photos, some more pictures. This is called examination time. And how about this? Yes, 18th century. Of course, the dressing code is totally different. If you email me, I'll send you the PDF with the paintings. It's really worth taking a very close look and a long look at these paintings with details. My email, Sifakis, Sifakis, it's in the program, at eap.gr. How about this? This girl stands up in order to say the lesson. Okay, you stand up. This is a typical village school, which is a multi-grade school, one teacher teaching most of the grades. At the same time. Okay. Back to today. Yeah, this is the teacher here. Does this resemble your own context? Yeah. Everybody has an agenda. Psychologists have for a very long time been researching motivation. What do we need? Which essential needs do we have in order for us to be motivated, to respond to tasks? And I'm going to use the ABC, which is three essential needs that we all have, and our learners have, by two American psychologists, DC and Ryan, who've been researching this for many, many years. A, autonomy. We want to participate in decisions that affect us. Okay. We want to have some control over what is taught to us. B, belonging. We want to connect with other people. Not only that, we want to be accepted by other people. We want to be part of an us, rather than fractions. And competence. We want to feel and really know that we are good at something. Not just anything, but something that is important to us and to our peers. And if you read the literature, you get, it's really funny, you get these three, the ABC of motivation, you get it in the literature. This is taken from Linda Darling Hammond, who is a professor of psychology in Harvard. Can you spot the ABC? Autonomy, belonging, and motivation. The three words. Synonyms, perhaps. Affiliation, autonomy, and competence. I think it's uncanny, how you see all these things appearing all the time. Mm-hmm. Now, if you look, we looked at the system, the school system, how it got developed, how it is today. We're supposed to be preparing our learners for tomorrow. What skills do they need for tomorrow, or today perhaps? There are different ways of looking at it, and I'm just taking the list from the North Central Regional Educational Laboratory, which is an association. quite well-known organization actually, four groups of key skills we need to be preparing our learners for. The first group, literacy, but not just any literacy, digital age literacy. Not necessarily digital literacy, digital age literacy. Okay, which involves a lot more than just the basic 3 or 4 R's that we saw yesterday. Now, I think that what we do, we understand, I think we agree that yes, we should be working towards these skills, yes? And some course books are actually attempting to help us in this, and help our learners to do this. For example, the multicultural literacy, there are many course books there. The second group, slightly more demanding. Creative, inventive thinking. And these are the sub-skills. My argument is that with all of these sets of skills, we as language teachers are fully responsible for these skills. Fully responsible. We can actually teach these skills. If we think of language teaching not just as the teaching of structures and functions, but in terms of all of these skills. Communication. For example, if you ask yourself, why do we need self-direction? Why is self-direction necessary for anybody, for an employee in the 21st century? Well, more and more companies these days, in the States, this is, well, things are in the States, demand of their employees to be self-directed. For example, Google has a very well-known policy of allowing their employees to work on whatever they want to work on for 2 afternoons every week. 2 afternoons, which is roughly 20% of their work days. 20% of the work days, they can do whatever they want. Sit around, do nothing, lazy around, or have their own personal agenda. And in fact, this turns out to be very good for Google, because things like Gmail started like that. Gmail was not a major central thing that Google did as one of the major initiatives. Okay, it started by one person who found the problem with the various email servers at the time and came up with a new way to do it, Gmail. So self-direction is really important, but how do we train our learners? Think about it. I mean, I don't have the answer to that, but it's something that is definitely needed. So we're looking for tasks that prompt people to take initiatives. Communication, effective communication, the next skill. Working in groups. Now, that's really important. The others are important as well, but I'm going to be talking more about group work and managing groups in the afternoon. We don't know enough about managing groups as teachers. We have to find out as much as we can about that, because that's really the solution to differentiated instruction. As you saw in the example we saw, the teacher had the groups, organized, and they did all the work. But it's really, there are some secrets, if you like, in really setting groups. So I'll talk more about this in the afternoon. And of course, high productivity. We want people to be productive, okay, in whatever we do. All right, and this is another way of looking at it, another description of 21st century skills. You have lifelong learning, again, digital literacy, collaboration, and so on. But sometimes teachers learn about these things, they read about these things. But in reality, why? Why is this? Because, you know, when I was a kid, this is how I grew up, this is what I believe, and yeah, I know in theory what I should be doing, but I can't really, I don't know how to actually do it. Would you agree with this statement? The main crisis in schools today is irrelevance. In the sense that, well, I mean, Dan Pink is thinking of public schools and what they do in the curricula, but I think it applies to all school systems, all schooling in general. Irrelevance as related with what? With what specific things? With society, with subjects, what the kids want, okay? So both with the what and with the how. Exactly. Alvin Toffler mentioned the different phases in the development of humans, okay? And of course we start with the age of agriculture, which went on for thousands or perhaps tens of thousands of years. We've been farmers. Then the industrial age, which was yesterday, you know, very recently, created the school system, which looked backwards and, of course, satisfied the needs of the age of agriculture. Some people believe we are not even at this stage. We've passed the age of information. The information age is behind us because everything is so accessible these days. You have access to all the information you want, very easily. In fact, some people say, people like Ray Kurzweil, the other well-known futurist, say that if you look at how technology progresses, the chip is going to become so small that when it becomes as small as a blood cell, then you can place it inside of you, and it can help you move around, different chips moving around. It can help you significantly in the prevention of diseases. You can have the whole cloud inside your brain. That's what he says. Look, if you're interested in this, look for Ray Kurzweil's book, The Singularity is Near, which is an amazing book, published, I think, a few years ago. 2029, he says, we're going to have computers inside ourselves. And you know, you'll be walking around, and whoever you see, you know, you will be able to focus on them, and you have all the information about them if you know them, the names, the family history, your relationship with them. It's really, really amazing what he comes up with. So a few more years, and this is another way. So we are not farmers anymore. The school system is designed for farmers, so the story goes. We are not even looking for knowledge workers, we're looking for creators and empathizers. So this is where we are. Or another way of looking at it is this. Okay, we laugh. This is Sai, I think you call him, the Korean guy with, okay. 1,450,000,000 hits on YouTube. His video. This is not a laughing matter. Okay? This is serious stuff. Okay. And there are many, many more people doing this. Okay, two more excerpts that I'm going to read to you. My wife and I went to a kindergarten parent-teacher conference and were informed that our budding refrigerator artist, Christopher, would be receiving a grade of unsatisfactory in art. That's kindergarten, okay? We were shocked. How could any child, let alone our child, receive a poor grade in art at such a young age? His teacher informed us that he had refused to color within the lines, which was a state requirement for demonstrating grade-level motor skills. Standardization is bad for you if you are a 21st century person, okay? And this is another problem. This is someone going into different schools and asking this question. How many artists are there in the room? Primary school. Would you please raise your hands? First grade, en masse, the children leapt from their seats, arms waving. Everybody was an artist. Second grade, about half the kids raised their hands, shoulder high, no higher. The hands were still. Third grade, at best, 10 kids out of 30 would raise a hand, tentatively, self-consciously. By the time I reached 6th grade, no more than 1 or 2 kids raised their hands, and then ever so slightly, betraying a fear of being identified by the group as a closet artist. The point is, every school I visited was participating in the suppression of creative genius. Now, more and more people are talking about this creativity and how it's lost in education. I think that it's more complicated than this, that there are other factors that you have to think about, not just the school system. As you grow up, you have other issues to deal with. But I'm sure we agree that this is more or less a problem, okay, with the school. The school does something to us as we grow up. I just love this slide. We are waiting for you to make us think for ourselves, okay? So let's talk about differentiated instruction. It's an approach to teaching that advocates active planning for and attention to learners' differences in classrooms in the context of high-quality curricula. What is a high-quality curriculum? Well, the way in which the teacher envisions and enacts each of the various elements in the curriculum shapes each of the other elements. For example, an assessment that feels judgmental to learners, to students, will have a negative impact on the learning environment. Okay? So you don't want that. So a list of standards cannot be a curriculum. Just, listing your principles. Similarly, a textbook is not a curriculum, and yet how many people, seriously, if you think about it, how many times, rather, not people, have we used a textbook as, the Bible of what we do? And I know this is very probably because this is what parents want. They want to see progress, so page from page to page, okay? But we want, essentially, a curriculum that clearly delineates knowledge and how it progresses from stage to stage. We want summative assessment techniques that help the teacher understand the progress that is being made. And we want a carefully planned sequence of lessons of the learning experiences. This is what the new school is supposed to be doing. Have you come across this term, the new school? If you're a public school teacher, you know this term from Diamandopoulos' law, 2011, I think, 2 years ago, το νέο σχολείο. But the term is much, much older. It's at least 10 years old, from the work of Kalangis and Cope, who said that the new school has these 4 principles. It's learner-centered. This was actually the motto from Diamandopoulos' law, Πρώτα ο μαθητής. Learning-centered, different types of learning must be catered for. Teacher autonomy, which is really important, and if you think about it, it's a revolution. The teacher can do whatever they want, not the course book. And it should use information communication technologies in any shape or form, because that's where learners live these days. So, I'm sure we can agree on this, that differentiated instruction is not a set of recipes. It's more a way of thinking that you either agree with and you start playing with it, or you don't agree with it, and you say, I'm a traditional teacher. And this is what's required. Rethinking classroom practice and results, an ongoing process of trial, reflection, adjustment in the classroom itself. I don't have time to go into the history, but this is not new, not a new thing. It goes back, you know, to the humanists, the Greeks. It goes, you know, if you know your Enlightenment, Rousseau, Emile, and of course John Dewey, who talked a lot about the role of the child and the importance of looking at the development of the child and the centrality of the child in the educational system. And then in the 20th century, you have all these different ways of grouping and differentiating, essentially, your teaching. Not all of them being correct, of course. Ability grouping is based on, what do you think? IQ tests. Okay, but it was a way of grouping, okay, which was very much in fashion in the 50s. And then with constructivism, the Piaget ways of thinking of the development, the developing needs of the babies as they grow up and young children. Then multiple intelligences that are very much in fashion these days. But how much do, I mean, I have the sense we know a lot about multiple intelligences, but we don't know how to use them in the classroom. We know that they exist, but do we use them? And then we have the famous post-method era, which I'm sure you've heard, you've seen this term before, post-method? No? Well, you know the communicative language teaching methodology. That's one method of teaching. Okay, you teach language as communication. That was one way of looking at teaching language as communication, which was great. Then you had total physical response, audiolingualism. These are methods. For at least 10 years now, we are living in the post-method condition, the post-method era, where no single method is the method to use. And that's it. You forget about it, you know. You just use the communicative approach. The CLT, the communicative teaching approach, has been criticized severely over the past many years, for many reasons. Anyway, Kumaravadivelu says that we have to understand three things about it. The first one is that no single theory has all the answers. On the contrary, it's up to us as teachers to abstract, to theorize from our own practice. Okay? So what you do is really, really important. If you want to reflect on what you're doing and assess it, research on it, that's much, much better than any theory will give you. So don't trust a specific theory. The second one, practicality, okay? Situated teaching is really, really important, which means that learners must do something with what you give them. They really must do something. Play with all the notions and the terms and all the new words or whatever. Not abstract information. And the last one, which is the third dimension, as it were, is that when you teach, not just language, but any subject, you enter into a power game. And the moment you enter the classroom, an outsider can describe your philosophy. Are you a teacher as a boss? Is this how you are, how you teach? Are you a teacher as a helper, as a prompter, as a friend, as a reference? Okay? And this is really, really big as an area. Just looking at, taking a picture of your classroom with yourself in it and thinking about it. What exactly is going on in the way that you teach? That's the post-method condition. And these are the principles, the essential assumptions of differentiated instruction. If we had time, I would show you another video by Paulo Freire, the famous Brazilian adult educator. We don't have time. Okay, the first one is, every student is worthy of dignity and respect. Really. Freire talks about tolerance. He talks to us as teachers and talks about we have to be tolerant towards our learners. Not work with those who are easier to work with, or the friendlier. More about this in the afternoon. Diversity is inevitable. It's there. Even identical twins are different people. And it's something that is good for your classroom. Okay? The third one, the classroom should mirror the kind of society in which we want our students to live. Who doesn't agree with this? But if we want our kids to grow up in a democratic society, shouldn't we be treating them democratically? Listening to them, to their interests? And most students can learn most things that are essential to a given area. If they cannot learn, it's probably not their fault. Okay? More about this in the afternoon. How you can you play with differentiated instruction? Well, of course, tasks that are specifically tailored to different types of people, of learners. Grouping, very important, as we mentioned. And ongoing assessment, all the time. Assessment not as testing, but as a way of gathering data for you, for yourself. Gathering information about how different people respond to what you ask them to do. So you don't grade them, you don't mark them, you just collect the information and you read it. What can be differentiated? Content, what you teach, is differentiated. Knowledge, understanding, and skills. Think of this in terms of a text that you give your learners. Okay? You can give different texts to different learners, and they can carry out the same task, but with different texts. Or you can keep the same texts and change the tasks. So process can be differentiated. This, for me, is much more authentic. How did you learn to read newspapers? I mean, I learned to read a newspaper because I saw my father with Tovima when I was very young, and we were reading the same newspaper. I was 10 years old, the same newspaper, he was reading it, and I would read it. But I wasn't really reading the paper. I was looking at the pictures, looking at the photographs, looking at the titles, and progressively I became more and more interested in, the smaller print. So what you ask your learners to do is really, really important. You can use an original first page from New York Times with your primary school learners. That doesn't matter. What do you ask them to do is what matters with that page. And of course, what you gain is the fact that people are happier because they're authentic tasks, and they become more comfortable with different texts, with difficult texts. What we understand as difficult texts, you know this when you teach first certificate and proficiency level learners who they become so frustrated when they see these long texts that they have to read and then answer the comprehension checking questions. Okay? But if they are comfortable with the texts, that's okay. It takes time, of course. And then, of course, you have the product. How students demonstrate what they have come to know, understand, and are able to do. Different people can do different things. How much time do I have? 5 minutes, perhaps? Okay. Now, you can say many, many things about this. This is just a very broad orientation. We're looking at learners, different types of learners' individualities. So the affective world, emotions and feelings that they have. Motivation to learn, ability to work with others, stuff like that. Then readiness. Readiness is really important. Readiness is the proximity, the current proximity a student has to a specific knowledge, item, or task. How close they are. It's nothing to do with their ability or whether they are clever or not. Okay? If they happen to be close to what you ask them to do, if what you ask them to do is slightly more complicated, not hugely challenging, they will do it. They will not do it if it's, unrealistic. Interests, that which engages the attention, curiosity, and involvement of a student, and the learning types. the profile of a learner. Other learners are very happy with you lecturing them. Very few. But most people have different you know, they need to stand up and move around. Okay? This is a list. In what ways are learners different? A list taken from Diane Larson Freeman's very useful list of attributes. You can find out as much, you should find out as much as you can about your learners. And this is a list of what you should be looking for. Some of these things are very easy to research. Their age is very easy. Perhaps their personality type is also straightforward. Attitude and aptitude. Aptitude, which is a feature that refers to learned rather than inherited or genetically endowed opinions and beliefs about a particular issue. The different personality types, learning disabilities, difficulties learners have with the language, dyslexia, and so on. You want to learn about these things. And the social identities, you know, the different things that they do with other people. So some learners play football, others play the piano, and they're different things with different people at the same time. These are who they are. Then you have how they conceptualize foreign language acquisition, okay, what motivates them to learn, their attitude to language. I remember having a learner when I was teaching. I don't teach anymore the language, I just train, which means that I can't teach, perhaps. But when I was teaching, I had a learner. This was an 18-year-old student, boy, who was very bad, you know, he just couldn't respond. And I was waiting for the first parent-teacher meeting to tell his mother about it, and I realized that his mother is English. And I was really surprised. The boy spoke no English. And, you know, I was really surprised because I had, I was sitting, you know, I was facing both of them. I started speaking English to the mother, and the boy he didn't like the language. He didn't like the language. Now you can imagine why this was the case. I mean, I never found out, but things are going on. The more you learn about different learners, the more you get help about their attitudes to what you know, to the language, or to teaching styles, for that matter. Cognitive styles and beliefs, very important. And of course, learning strategies. Okay, what we do in order to learn. These are different strategies for differentiated instruction. We can talk more about this in the afternoon. Stations are organizing the desks, not looking at the desks as a borderline between your learners and yourself, but as a symbol for grouping. Okay, you can have learners sitting around tables. Agendas, you can set individual agendas for different people, showing them that you care for them and you take responsibility for their own learning. Portfolios, you collect everything that they give you as data. Independent studies, you can set them off to do something on their own. Compacting for the more advanced learners, compacting of the curriculum. Okay, you can, if they are more advanced, they don't have to go through the same tasks that may be boring to them. Learning contracts, especially if you're teaching adults, this is a very good way of approaching your adults on the first day that you meet them. You can say to them, this is what we are going to be doing this year, and I commit myself that this is what, I will respond to your needs, I'll do my best, and I expect that you will do the same thing. Contracts. Tiered activities, okay, activities with different levels of the same activity can be spelled out with different levels of reaching the goal of the activity for different learners. Centers, which are just reference points using the entire classroom walls. You can use the walls. You can have a small library with some reference materials, dictionaries. You can have things that they do, that you put them on the walls. Okay, centers. Should I be finishing? I'll finish with this. I read this really interesting book by a guy called Jarvis, which the book was translated into Greek afterwards, which means that it's really a good book. And this is what the book, the title of the book was, What Would Google Do? And the book was addressed to managers, CEOs, company executives. The first thing that it says, I think it applies exactly to teachers. So the first advice is give the people control. Okay? By the people, think learners. Your worst customer is your best friend. More about this in the afternoon. I hope to see you all at the workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nico. Something to reflect on, as I'm sure all of us are doing at this very moment. I am.